Good evening. My name is Melissa Jacobs. This is Mainline Tonight.
Je suis Victor Castro. Bienvenue à le programme Mainline ce soir.
We are in the home studio of Agathe Bouton. She is an award-winning printmaker and artist. She has invited us here. We're going to show you around her amazing studio.
We're very excited to have you here for this program. And with that, I guess we'll pass it over to Agathe.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Bienvenue. Agathe.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
So thank you so much for having us here. So let's start with the work behind you.
Yes,
This
so-
is something that you created during the quarantine period. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, exactly. So I took a break from my actual series of work, which is totally different that I'm usually doing. And I was really inspired by my neighborhood, and I was doing a lot of walks as we couldn't really go everywhere else during the lockdown here in Philadelphia. So I was inspired by my daily walks, as I said, and inspired by the nature around me. It was beginning of spring. There was a lot of things going on, and I wanted to work with red color to bring a little bit of positivity and energy to my work. And yeah, so it's mostly print of vegetal I collected on the side of the streets.
So walk us through, how did you pick the colors and what goes in each square?
So I picked the colors mostly, as I said, because I wanted something colorful and something that brings energy to my daily life at that time. It was quite, quite depressing, so I wanted something to cheer me up.
Yeah, and I thought that red was different for you, but you said you've worked with reds before.
Yes, I worked with red before, but it was 15 years ago, and a little bit when I was living in Southeast Asia. But since the last 15 years, maybe I'm mostly into bluish, grayish color. So yes, it was. I think I had that really need or urge to really go back to bright color. That was really important for me, and I don't know if it was because it was a lockdown.
Yeah.
There's all craziness going around, but
Yeah.
for
Now,
sure, yes.
Agathe, I have a question for you. So what was your, coming up in your artistic background, what were some of the influences that you had?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of influences. So I started as a painter, but very early on I moved to printmaking. Totally fell in love in printmaking. So I would say it can be Rembrandt, but Rembrandt is mostly because of the richness and the powerful of his work and of his etching. So my work is not really related to his work at all. There's Durer, there's plenty of the guys, there's painters, there's Nicolas de Stael, which is a French painter that I really like, but there's so many, so it's difficult. I grew up with going to Picasso exhibition a lot, so...
And that's the reason I was asking was because when many of the European artists first came to the United States and they sent paintings back to Europe, they said these colors can't be correct. Because the elm trees, the ash trees, all the trees that are not typical to Europe.
Yes,
and it's a very red, very maple,
Yes,
maple
yes,
trees,
yes.
that kind of thing.
And mostly during fall, for sure.
fall,
It's
yeah.
really, really different here, yes. I don't really take too much importance of that because I will let my own emotion and creativity behind the work. And I quite like some of my work are more abstract than others. They're mostly abstract, so I like people to just see whatever they want to see into the work too.
Very good.
tell us a little bit about how you got started as a printmaker.
So I basically studied fine art in a fine art school in Paris. I had a degree in painting and printmaking, and I have a degree as a textile designer. So I started my career as a textile designer, and I worked in the textile industry for around 10 years. But very early after I started to work, I was not practicing art for myself. So I switched as a freelance, and I became full-time artist, I would say now 20 years ago, something like that. So
And where was that?
That was in Paris, in France. Yes.
In Paris. So
Yes.
where were you born and raised?
I was raised just outside of Paris.
In what arrondissement?
No, outside of Paris.
Oh,
in
outside the
suburb,
city
sorry.
entirely.
Yes.
Okay.
In the suburb, but I done my studies in Paris, and I lived in the 20th arrondissement near the Père Lachaise.
Oh, yeah.
And I had an amazing studio here, a sculpture studio with very high ceiling. It was amazing.
Did you go to Père Lachaise for inspiration? I know it's a place.
Not really.
No?
I think when you live in Paris, you
That's a tourist thing.
I used to go, to visit some of the, famous places
Yeah.
of people in Père Lachaise, but not
Yeah.
necessary. But yes.
Do you still have family there?
All my family is in France, yes.
So what do you hear from them with COVID-19?
With COVID-19, surprisingly, it was a very busy year for me. And I think I didn't want it to let me down with all the craziness going around. And I said, so I started that series Behind You, and I've done some other work related to my environment, my neighborhood.
Right.
It was really, like I said, a break in my other series of work. I needed something refreshing. I needed to, I don't know if I can say that, but I needed to do a work which doesn't have too much brain work.
Yeah.
And that kind of work for me was, I can't say easy, but I didn't have to think too much. It was like having a nice break.
Yeah.
Like going on holiday, basically.
Yeah. Well, let's move to this work that you have right here. This is part of your upcoming show. As we move the camera, bear with us.
All right.
So again, we want to introduce ourselves. My name is Melissa Jacobs, and this is Mainline Tonight.
Je m'appelle Victor, avec le programme Mainline ce soir.
And we are with Agathe Bouton in her home studio in Wynwood, a suburb of Philadelphia. She's showing us some of her latest work. So what we have in front of you, this is what you've been working on. It's part of an exhibit that's opening next month, right?
Yes,
At
exactly.
Stanek Gallery in Philadelphia, one of the
yes.
most prestigious. So walk us through what we're looking at.
Maybe you want to turn it a little bit, no? Yeah, okay, great. So, yes, I'm very happy to sign a contract with Stanek Gallery early this year. I worked with them in different previous exhibition, but they asked me if I wanted to be part of the amazing team of artists, and we decided to work on exhibition for this spring, and because of the pandemic, it didn't happen, so it's now postponed for next month. So it will be November and December, starting on the 6th of November with an opening until the 26th of December.
And it's by appointment, right? So the
It
gallery will
by
be...
appointment only. So if you want to, I will post regularly on social media. There's already information on my website. If you want to receive more information, you can send me a PM through my Instagram account with your email address. Yeah, a DM. Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
PM is in French.
I had to get educated on this myself. And I was like, what's a DM? DM.
Is it PM in French?
I don't know. I always said PM. Private message.
Yeah.
Send her a DM, a message.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what she
Okay.
wants. So
Okay,
tell us what
anyway,
we're looking at here.
Yes, so we've got different new series where I basically use some of my prints that I cut into pieces. As a printmaker, there's always a lot of I would say, paper on the side that you print and you don't necessarily keep. And I decided to weave them. So it's a totally different, it's a totally different series of work. It's very intimate. It's small, it's fragile. But I think after developing that big series of inspired by architecture when I moved here 6 years ago, I wanted to go back to something related to textile, to fragility. So this series is called in French Seconde Peau, which I think you can translate by second skin, but it's nicer in French. So it's more related of our skin and how our skin gets injured, in our little daily injury. And this is why we've got touches of gold lips, and it's all about restoration. And so there's a
When
lot
did
to
you
say.
start working on this?
So I started working on that exactly a year ago. A year ago.
It's
And
very relevant now.
Yes, I know. Yes. So good timing.
A lot of us have injured skin and
I worked with
wow.
silk thread, and I collect a lot. I'm a collector, and I like mixing things. So I like I'm not a traditional printmaker. I like to mix some of my prints
Yes.
with other matte material. So some are already framed, but those are, waiting for the framer come by. But yeah, I'm playing with pieces of paper. This is why I've got previous work on that wall of installation I've done years ago in France. There's some
So what you're showing us is a sneak preview of what will be in Stanek Gallery next month. So this is a sneak preview of that work, and you can DM her for more information. And tell us about what's on the wall while we're here in the studio.
So I had the privilege to travel the world. Before I moved to the States 15 years ago, I left France and moved to England first, London, and very shortly after to Southeast Asia. And I lived in Myanmar, Burma, for nearly 5 years. And those are pieces of woodcut prints I created when I was in Burma. And so it's basically woodcut print onto unmade traditional paper from northeast of the country and adding stitches on it. So there's always, linked with textile in my work and with thread and sewing. And I've got that pieces here, which is some prints that I sewed together to make a kind of, it's an inspiration of a traditional Burmese jacket. So I had a big series, a very successful series. I sewed some pieces at the Stanek Gallery.
Yeah, and they are watching. They said it's their privilege to have you with them. Yes.
So I've got works that I made in West Africa. After Asia, I moved to West Africa.
Oh, wow.
So I kept the same color chart. At that time, I had no studio. I had a studio, but I didn't put travel with my studio. So I left everything in a warehouse in London. I didn't have my etching press. So everything you see here was printed by hand.
Wow.
À quel pays in l'Afrique Ouest?
So I lived in Ivory Coast.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire, yes, and Senegal.
Wow.
So Abidjan et Dakar. Dakar, yes.
So let me ask you this question. I see a lot of influences, you've taken in a lot of the terroir, a lot of the characteristics of where you're coming from. I see it in the colors. There's metals. There's these deep blues that, from certain stones that you will see in various places.
I would say textile again.
Yeah.
Textile. Because it's indigo. It's inspired by the indigo dye.
Yeah.
Yes, and in Asia they use a lot of indigo, and some of the traditional tribe in Burma they still use, they grow their own pastel, which is a plant, a flower, and do their own dye and do their own clothes. Basically, they weave their own fabrics and dye it with indigo, which is still, a very strong tradition there. So, it was for me. Yes, definitely very inspiring. So this is why it's related to indigo. And after when I moved in West Africa, they still do some dyeing with it's chemical indigo, but there's still indigo there.
Yeah. So we have people joining. Do you know Eddie Ross? We have to introduce you. He just joined.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for joining.
Yes. Absolutely. So let's move. We're going to take you through. I'm going to get out of the way, and we're going to go through to the other part of
the studio. Yes,
right?
That's the clean part. I would say.
So we'll follow you. You go ahead.
Okay, great.
And I will talk while Victor moves it. So we are in the studio of Agathe Bouton. She is a printmaker and artist. She's led us into her home studio in Wynwood, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. She has a show coming up at Stanek Gallery, and she's giving us a behind-the-scenes look at some of the work that she's done. So, ready? Okay.
So we come back to printmaking. Here I've got a carbon on print I've done in France. I started doing, I would say, kind of traditional printmaking with the traditional. When I say printmaking, it's mostly intaglio and etching work. So I've got, and we can see that later, I've got an etching press just on my side here, where I do all my prints. And I used to do those kind of work, and I'm still doing it. It's just physically quite demanding, and I injured my right arm by working with those plates. But that's a mixed media. There's a print, there's some acrylic on top of it, and a bit of collages. But that's a piece I developed when I was living in Istanbul before I moved
Wow.
here.
So how did you travel? Like, what took you around the world?
My husband.
Ah.
It's not because of me, it wasn't because of him. So he was working for an international NGO, and this is why we moved from the different part of the world. And this is why also we're here. He changed job into a philanthropy company, but and we're here for a certain time now, which is great. So
wow, is he French as well?
No, he's British.
Ah, very interesting.
He's British.
Okay.
So yes, there's some work in progress. We've got work here from that new series.
Yes.
This one will be in Stanek. It's one of my favorite pieces.
Wow.
It's very airy.
Yes. Yes.
And I've got that series that I developed also last year called Vue de la Vitre. So it's also linked with the series I developed when I started here, inspired by architecture, called Habitat and Urban Matter. And it's what you can see through a window when the window is not necessarily very clean, or there is some, it was raining. And so it's some of my prints that I mount on canvases here. I know I always do. So that would be, I would say, the base of the work. That was the first. That was the first phase.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't happy with the work, so I started to paint on it and done some individual little square.
Great.
And I sold some with Stanek, a few of them. It's a very nice series.
Yep.
And we've got previous work here done in France. This one is one of my first prints.
Wow.
Print. But you can see the LinkedIn color,
yes.
the LinkedIn composition.
Yes.
So sometimes I don't remember. So this is why I like to have some boards in my studio when I mix my series. So I really like to tell stories behind my work. So I like to have a link between all of them. That's a series I developed also called Héberge, which is all the neighborhood walls that you found when a block of building is demolished.
Yeah.
You can see that a lot in Fishtown, in those areas when they demolish a lot at the moment.
The connections between the old
buildings.
buildings.
And you can see some trace of wallpaper or tiles on the wall or staircase.
Yeah.
So it's all inspired. It's a cardboard print that I mounted on a wood panel.
Wow.
And the cardboard print, it's kind of a contemporary way of using printmaking. And
so do you want to tell us about the press, while we're standing here?
Yes. So I just moved the press to make much more space.
So for people who don't know what the press is, explain what this is.
Yes, let me move that a tiny bit. So that's an etching press. So an etching press has two rollers, one above and one under, and a plate. And basically it's it's one of the tools we use to make some print onto paper. So you have usually a copper plate. I'm working mostly with plexiglass because I'm doing a more contemporary approach. You engrave it with different techniques.
And you apply the ink and
you apply the ink.
Yeah.
And you apply the paper. I will go quick because it's a long process. You apply the paper and everything goes under the press. So that won't roll, but you roll it, everything goes under those big rollers with very high pressure. And what you got on the plate will basically be print reverse on the paper.
And that's the same process we use for making money, le monnaie.
Exactly. I could, change job and make some banknotes, but I'm not sure I'm very good enough with the drawing.
So we're going to have you come over here. This is our last stop in your studio.
This is my two working tables. That's my two, where I usually work on my plates and ink my plates. And what we've got here on the back, it's one of my, I call it studio board, inspiration board or wall. I've got some work in progress. I've got ideas, experimentation. I've got little cardboard.
Yeah. So let me just interrupt you. We have Constance McBride joining us. She is another.
Yes,
do you
I
know her?
Yes,
Oh, good. Hello, Constance. Yes. We just want to say hello to people, and of course, Eddie would love to meet you. Yes, we'd love to make that happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
Anytime in the studio, we can
Well,
wear
they have a
masks,
studio,
we can-
Maximalist Studio.
Okay.
That it's that's where you go to have a party. Okay,
think I showed
so
you
you're
one.
telling us about. So let me just tell everybody once again that we are mainline tonight, and my name is Melissa Jacobs.
Je suis Victor. Le mainline ce soir.
And we're here at Agathe Bouton's home studio in Wynwood, and she is showing us around. So we are looking at her inspiration board, or her mood board, as we call it here in America.
Yeah, or
So
pen
please-
mail too. So
So please tell us a little bit about what we're looking at. What are the different things there?
So there's, as I said, when I moved here 6 years ago, I decided to, every time, I just have to go back. Every time I move from a country to another, I try to be inspired by the country where I lived, by the culture, by my environment, to make it short.
Mm-hmm.
So when I moved here, I was questioning myself, what will be my next area of work? And I decided to be inspired by the urban landscape architecture you find here in North America as a way to build, which is so different than in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy looking at how a house is built and the skeletons, the wooden skeleton of the house. And I'm also extremely inspired by contemporary architecture. So I developed that whole series of monotype called Habitat and Urban Matter, and you can check that on my website.
Mm-hmm.
There's some pieces behind. And so it's all monoprint or monotype. So it's one go under the press, and I'm mostly working with adding layers on each other and build up like that the composition in my work. So I have some, and that series is nearly done, but I still produce more, and I like to experiment. So I just started to cut one of my prints and see if I can weave it together. I'm not so sure at the moment, so it's just on the board, and I let it sit, because what I like to do is just sometimes let the work sit, and just, when I'm in the studio doing something else, just look at it sometime, and suddenly the idea will pop up, or the idea will pop up. So I do that a lot, and there's some, different experimentation. That's a piece of Japanese fabric. That's one
That's
of
great.
my 2020. We use that 2020,
Right.
Really.
Can we shred that? Can we shred 2020?
That was my, I like to do personal New Year's card. So that one was great with 20. I found them, having 2020 together quite nice, without knowing that the year would be a bit particular. But definitely we will remember this year.
Yes, we
And
will.
I've got, a few ideas. That's
great.
basically some old prints that I cut together to do something else. Scratches of paper. I used to do. I use a lot of masking paper. I've got some of the prints here, and that's one of my latest, which is much more, I would say, abstract. And it's reference to the skeleton of the house, of the building, but in a very minimalist way.
Yes.
And there's plenty. There's a lot. So
Great.
there's a lot to say.
Great.
Well, one of the things I noticed about you have a lot of depth in your art, as I said before, and the influences, like there's metal, there's earth, there's dimension. Like the one piece up there is a circular piece, but almost has a lot of depth, 3D depth to it. And that's what I think is very notable. I can see the blue influences still coming through, the browns and the blues.
Yes, at the moment.
And the other thing is, water seems to be a common theme here. So from these pieces, water washes down and changes things over time. So
water in the sea, in the seascape, in the landscape. Yes, definitely. There's some water. There's definitely the 4 element. Maybe not the fire, but in the red area, there's a bit of fire. Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna come back around the camera. You can leave it right there.
Okay.
And come with me. So once again, here we go. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. We are in Agathe Bouton's home studio. She's been very gracious to let us be here. We hope you enjoyed our Meet the Artist session. So my name is Melissa Jacobs. This is Mainline Tonight.
I'm Victor Castro.
Say it in French!
Je m'appelle Victor.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Started.